entries, including international. So it's
impressive.
yeah.
Could you have a document for the next one?
Yes, hard copy. It's in my
Yeah.
but okay, that was our record. That was our 57-minute review. Almost an hour. But yeah, we need to just discipline the length of our comments. Yeah. Say the most important things, and maybe the next one will say the other things. Yeah. Be careful there.
So, hello, my name is Mārtiņš Rudzītis, and I will present my master thesis in the perspective of future through the consolidated living with the development of the concept, the city inside the building. In order to understand the master thesis perspective, the perspective approach of the potential thesis research is conducted due to the concerns of the rising population and diversity between rural and urban areas, thus creating the scenario where the urban environment should exceed more than 70% of population overall. The perspective aspects include the research question, which is actually intended by the concept itself, that this concept, the city inside the building, actually serves as urbanizational problem-solving aspect, and does it actually meet today's living criteria. Historically, the consolidated aspect of living in the cities has been implemented with dividing in more than just an urban proposal, but the city structure itself, thus not implementing it into the singular structure. The first, you could say, the aspect of the terminological principle was architect Paulo Soleri, who intended his own approach to this conceptual design and integration in the single structural design, which implemented and coined his own theoretical part, which was arcology, which is ecological and architectural merge, thus creating his own vision of a modern day, you could say, living perspective, his own city of Arcosanti, where he implemented several experimental architectural principles and served as the cultural and communal aspect of the modern day of the living perspective. But during the 90s, the urbanization problems has occurred more often around all the world. So there has been perspectives of these megacity implementation and conceptual designs, but due to several aspects of non-enforcement perceptions, they stayed only as concepts because they, due to their volume and their financial aspect, they weren't protectively incorporated to the existing solution. But if you look at the modern day society and solutions as consolidated aspect, there are three types and main kind of aspects of consolidated living: ecological, social, and economical. But as historical aspect, also it shows that more than consolidated living has been implemented to the urban reshaping and reurbanization factors, thus shaping and kind of creating this urban model implementing the existing environment. And there are some positive aspects like Barcelona's superblock design, but it's only implemented in the existing environment. Thus leading to the global pandemic factor of actually the consolidated living, the perspective of implementing more functions into an existing household actually proved that more than 30% of the social welfare were active, and social distribution increased, and economical factor also, thus leading to the free time and potentially aspects of two perspective living and working perspectives. which links to my concluding remarks about that the strong foundational aspect of historical preservation of this concept city inside the building has already been produced, but with a modern day sense, modern day trends and social needs of co-working and co-living as a potential communal aspect has been implemented and can serve as the potential aspect of the futuristic living. Thus, leading to my design part, the project SIA, it also serves not just a consolidated factor, but also a geographical consolidation. The chosen site is Ruhnu or Ruoņu Sala, which is located in the Gulf of Riga. It's part of Estonia, but has the beneficial distance to Latvian perspective. Is the historical reference, the terminological factor of the cultural has to be taken into variety. It has strong inhabitant variety from the surrounding, you could say, from the surrounding perspective, thus actually increasing the potential of prospective economical developments. The island from Latvian perspective has been implemented in different strategical aspects to implement it as a strong tourism destination, thus serving economical goals and prospective developments to the coastal area and city. So if you look at the island itself, there are some historical references, such as structurally manageable city, which is located in the center of the island. There is a port, which is located on the south side of the island, which is here, and there is a main road, which is leading to the city. Thus, as the you could say the development aspect shows that where the city ends, so does the road, so there is no accessibility to the north side of the island, which serves as a potential development spot to integrate perspective aspects. The chosen site is relatively plain field with dense forest surrounding it. The key design factors for approach of this conceptual design is based on integrating structure into the existing environment, thus promoting it a geographical system with possible connectivity to the existing infrastructure and the community, but with the social interaction in it. The design perspective is relatively simple, with two-shaped design, irregular and unregular, merging it all together to create a structure with possible key design features kept in mind. As the master plan shows, the perspective layout is located and placed parallel to the shore, which kind of implements the existing factor of the viewing perspective, thus creating the possibilities to connect it to the existing environment. And as the layout suggested, there are a lot of aspects implemented as the archaeology principles, such as green garden and entrance area, and of course the green roof design. In order to design the functional aspects of co-living and co-working into a singular structure, there are mainly integrated five perspective functions, which are co-working, living, and social interaction aspects, and with the supplements of the green garden. Mainly the first floor is the main connectivity between all the necessary aspects that are happening inside it, with keeping in mind the geographical location. It is relatively simple prefabricated design, so the open space can be integrated as the social interaction perspective, where the cultural aspects and technological merge could happen. On the one side of the building is all the necessary functions that are needed for everyday living, the shopping, cafeterias, and so on. And on the other side, there are perspectives of co-working, where the two-story floors with the integrated office, where the functional trends of the modern day society could work and share their technological references. The green garden supplements all the functions with the integration of recreational area, and also serving as a self-sufficient design for the future development. The living perspective is located on the upper floors, dividing them between the short-term living and long-term living, thus creating the separation from the existing, from the, say, the noisiest part of the building, which is located underneath, The local and long-term living is prospectively designed to implement and bring back 150 local residents, which will be maintaining the existing infrastructure. And the short-term living perspective is based on the variable residents who will kind of come work here, implement their own technological reference, and boost the communal aspect. Thus, the design is creating also accessible options for the sightseeing spots, which are actually one of the visited places on the island, implementing and designing it into the existing environment, thus creating the connectivity throughout the whole island, merging it from the north to the south. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. So, Martin's master thesis, the theoretical part reviewer is Sergejs Nikiforos. Sorry. And so he wrote the positive qualities of the thesis. Theme is topical in context of contemporary urbanism. And the disadvantages and imperfections of the thesis, reviewers suggest to recheck the facts and history of island. And the master thesis practical part reviewer is also Sergejs Nikiforos, and here the positive qualities of the thesis he writes. The project is clear and has clear and unified solutions. And the disadvantages and imperfections of the thesis. Disadvantages and imperfections of the thesis might be in Estonian Republic building restrictions. Thank you. And so the comments. Could you answer?
I can also answer already.
Yeah.
So I had 4 questions, one regarding the research part and 3 regarding the design part. I will start with the research part. Basically about the residential unit and how the tourism and residents will react to it. From my personal perspective, there is an accommodation problems on the island due to the tourism influence. There is approximately 7,000 to 13,000 tourists attending it every year, thus creating actually the living accommodation problems. And from the perspective of tourist accommodations from February, from basically for 1 year, there has been implemented kind of regarding to this tourism attraction, there is a certain type of percentage increase, so thus leading that this island is actually one of the top tourist destinations, and it could actually lead to these accommodation problems. So I would say that the residential part of this design could actually help to boost the economical factor. So the questions about the B part is the catering complex and how does actually supply and how the supplies is addressed, and does it use the perspective port. The design actually, yes, for the first one, there is a catering complex in the first, second, and third floor to implement the every need necessities for the everyday living in the building. And the supplemented functions is addressed due to the existing port, because as my research suggested that several aspects of this typological thinking of a city inside the building could affect the already existing environment. Thus, if I created a new port for perspective, you could say the supply function, then it could actually overthrow the existing infrastructure and create a diversity between the environmental aspect also. And the existing port actually is kind of designed to implement only the tourist visitation process. And the last question was about the waste management plan. The island perspective is actually really large, because the east part of the Estonian perspective is included in the UNESCO Biosphere program, and they use this, you could say, the collect and recycle factor in all the islands. There are ferries that are leaving island 2 times a month due to this kind of size of the island and the recycling factor. And if you look at the Estonia's kind of waste generation per capita, show they have decreased it really rapidly. And I think that waste management should be operated seamlessly as it is right now. Yes, that's it.
Thank you. And the questions from the jury, please.
Yeah, it's I quite like this statement from Koolhaas. The great building is always a small city, and a great city is a big house.
That's true.
And you also said that the city is the necessary instrument for development of mankind. Now, what you have chosen to do is to have like large buildings with lots of apartments, and you have in a very rural site, understand. But I'm just been intrigued by the shape of your building, because you've chosen a concave shape, and you got obviously the best views are from the either end, right?
Yes.
In the middle, not like that, but it's not very steep. So I can see you cut some holes into the slope, and they could become nice roof terraces or whatever.
Yes, that was the plan in the, I think we saw this.
Right.
So yeah, basically.
But if it was steeper, you can get more out of it. Now, did it occur to your mind that if you had a steeper slope, and get more outdoor access, more terraces?
It was one of the aspects of development, and I did try different designs. But if the sloping aspect is kind of more sloped, then of course the functional division would be more kind of separated, and there would be maybe if the building needed to be even more higher.
Yeah.
It's actually affecting also from the perspective that there is a strong winds in the region, and maybe it could serve as a potential threat, not just as a design.
Yeah. Well, on the one end it's cheaper, and the other one is, then it's getting almost flattish, if you like. Yeah.
A little bit, yeah.
Yeah. No, I'm just intrigued because with this kind of development, where people are in a rural setting and you want to have good views, this is almost like the opposite to the National Library in Latvia, where you actually have the greatest views from the very top. So I'm just wondering, why did you choose that shape for the building?
So the design principles were actually, the first one was that I needed to bring back the old inhabitants that had left the island in the previous kind of years, so
Right.
less than 150 people, which is this part, so it's higher in the design part, and the variable part is kind of lower. Thus the shape creates actually the possibilities to also introduce the solar panel systems and kind of self-sufficient factor to the building, because it's located, it's isolated, and it needs to kind of think also about these factors. That's why I choose the building to be a little bit sloped, and of course it could also, it's also serving as terraces for the inhabitants on the both sides.
Yeah. And what kind of cladding do you have on this sloping roof?
So basically, think about this kind of structural part of the city. It was implemented to be kind of prefabricated concrete kind of roof, but from different parts put together. Because the only accessibility part is the sport, where you can actually bring all the materials that are needed for the building.
But the roof surface, what's that?
I was thinking about, you could say, how to say, not concrete, but kind of polished concrete.
Okay. Thanks for very clear answers. Thank you.
Well, it was really nice to hear something which is more kind of futuristic and many thought provocative topic. I have to confess that when I was listening to this, I remembered all those Spanish and Portuguese conquistadors living on the island, and I was wondering about the forts, and then I went back to Japan in mid-60s and thought about metabolists and all those possibilities to build on the water. And why I'm saying this, that the start of the project was so good with all those futuristic projects, and I'm just a bit confused that the outcome is just a small building with 250 inhabitants. And therefore, I was just thinking how it's possible to get someone there to live. I was wondering, how can you build this on that island? You were talking about the outcome of the waste and everything, but I'm wondering, how can you build this? Because it really requires a lot of labor to get this city done. And yeah. And what about the sea level?
So about the sea level, I did research in Estonian cadastre. You could say the principles, they have a similar aspect of remodeling existing environment. And the existing site is 5 meters above the sea level, so it's relatively high to the surrounding areas. The highest part of the island is 19 meters, which is located in the forest area, and the lowest part is basically the part where all the infrastructure isn't located. Thus, their model suggested that in the 500 or 1,000 years, the area of this may flood. But the area of this, basically the north-south, not north, but west side of the island will stay intact.
And how you imagine this building could be built?
So the building principles, yeah, the aspects of course, prefabricated structure need to be implemented due to the isolation factor. It definitely would take some time, but based on the proposal factors and the size of the building, I think it's manageable. And after kind of analyzing these already proposed designs of these megacities, their construction time was predicted 50 to 150 years, and I think it also took a little bit kind of aspect why I choose this idea to be a little bit smaller.
So it's kind of a floating hotel, or in the size of huge those ships crossing Atlantic Oceans.
It has a similar idea, but with the communal aspect and the co-working and the co-living factor implemented into the design. Because the aspect of the already integrated city, which is actually the historical reference, they kind of, when I visited the island and of course interviewed some pedestrians, and they said that they already live as consolidated as they could. They are recycling, remanaging, and functionally distributing and boosting the economical factor of the island.
Well, thank you. I was just thinking it could even be pushed even further. Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, well, very interesting approach and something different from realistic projects. But if there is a building, I would ask still about a realistic approach of this. My question is about your investigation of the Ruhnu Island. So there is, I've been, but a long time ago there. In my memory, it's pretty small houses, like approximately the same what is in Latvia, in small, even not town, but villages. Log houses and old log fences and small scale. And you are saying that there were about 150 persons moving from the island somewhere else, and you would like to have them back. And there are tourists which are coming in a big amounts to the island. In your opinion, what are those tourists seeing in the island, and why are they coming? In my opinion, they are coming for exactly that scale what they can see there. And then you are building the big building and saying they should stay in something which is absolutely different from what is there and what they are coming to see. And also for those who lived in the island, that's my opinion. That's why I'm asking you. they used to live in self-sufficient, more or less, houses, and still the scale of and the landscape and typology of buildings is as it is. And this is absolutely something different from whatever has been on this island. Isn't there some? Will they agree with this one, with this new volume, or it would be like some maybe attraction is itself to go to see this one, or what do you think? How will be the attitude from locals and from tourists coming to the island for to see this one?
So yes, the perspective of diversity is of course would affect the existing environment, but I think it would affect in the more positive sense than negative. There are right now actually focusing on more of this cultural, historical background with the supplementants of the Estonian, Sweden and Finland cultures merged together. So basically they are representing the cultural aspects and recreational, say, the viewing points of the island. There are several kind of visited places which are historically built, but I think that this design would supplement also from technological perspective, thus bringing the cultural aspect even kind of further into the development, and also bringing more, for example, aspects of technological reference that could supplement the already existing infrastructure.
Okay, and then it's also a theoretical question, or even more theoretical question about social aspects living in such a cohabitants place. There have been such experiments already in the history, not just theoretical, but real, where people live and work and educate themselves and their kids, and live in generations in one house, in one building. And as I remember that no one from such an experiments finishes pretty good. They are like the social aspect is not improving. It's mostly being empowered. So what is your opinion on, from your research, how do you think that cohabitants in the long term will work?
So as the research continued on a modern day kind of perspective, after the pandemical merge, the global kind of aspect of social integration changed, thus kind of implementing and merging it also into this co-living and co-working space. That's why I kind of put these two functional distributions in the building. That's why I think from the perspective of development, I think it could work and maybe even develop further into the future.
Continue.
Okay, I will have some very practical questions. I am looking for your residential parts, floor plans. And for example, for floor plan fourth floor,
Okay.
and for others, there is a long-term living and short-term living.
Yes.
On the right side, long-term living, and am I correctly understand that these living rooms are inside without daylight?
So basically the daylight will be permitted as the open space design. There is these shafts which will provide light from above and from below, because you could say the floors above it are actually also open design, and there is glass facades all around. So basically the daylight will come inside.
Oh, this is like a shaft.
Basically, it's like an open design through the. I think it was visible in. It was here visible. So basically, yeah, there are these.
Then we will have
above.
some light,
Yeah, the light will be
into the
implemented into
living
corridors,
rooms,
yeah,
yes.
yeah.
And about this short term, there is some of very deep, small units, without bed. It's
So the short-term living was variable due to the implementation of actually, you could say that specific developments, and I think that, for example, there is a variable chance that, for example, people will come here and live for a week, for a month, or for a year as they kind of supplemented and work from this unity. Thus, creating these small apartments may kind of accommodate one person only. So basically there is a design that in the long-term living there is 1, 2 and 3 bedroom apartments, and in short-term there is one and two. Yeah, 1 and 2.
yeah.
Basically
It's,
supplementing that this is the variable part of the design.
this is like a studio.
Basically, I like studio.
Studio type without bed. Okay, no problem. Thank you.
Yes, thank you, Martin, for your project and your presentation. I agree to some of the comments here. Linda brought up the question about the pushing this farther, because when you first mentioned the project, the idea of and studying this topic and your location, to me, the topic and the location were quite intriguing to see how this island and this remote place, to me, it seemed like a place where you could actually try sort of an experimental community rather than on the mainland. But I think the Ole mentioned about being more also. Go to the diagram that you had of these shapes, because the shape on the right-hand side, to me, the one side being much higher, and when we were asking about the materials, I understood that your actual roof material is solar panels. Is that correct?
No, it's solid concrete with solar panels implemented.
That's what I mean. The cladding is solar panels.
Basically, it could serve as this as the technological kind of aspect pushes forward.
No, I mean the diagram shows the sun is shining on.
It was implemented as only the diagram, and basically the panels will be located on the roof.
Right, right, exactly. That's why I'm asking: is the cladding, the finishing, is the actual capability of collecting? Yeah, okay. Because, and then also on the inside, where you have on the south side of the building, where you have this huge botanical garden, or and sort of you could say orangery, yeah, which can serve as a green area both summer and the winter. To me, the covering should be much more open. I understand the idea of the green roof, but I think that if that is like a atrium space, that should be truly opened up to above, so the sun does come into that area. I mean, what was why did you decide to only have the glazing horizontally out?
So yeah, the design, I think if we put more glazing on the top, that sun may be too much, because basically the first floor is 8 or to 12 or maybe even 14 meters high, and the sun from the sides actually kind of I think it would be enough for this lighting perspective.
Okay. Okay. No, the reason why I mentioned that, because you mentioned like the case study of Arco Santi and these biospheres and these sort of experimental projects from 50s, 60s, and 70s. Arco Santi was basically like a self-contained sort of biosphere where everything could happen. That's why I was just wondering, because to me, I think it should be more opened up in that sense, because of the functions. It's like a community, closed community where they can provide for everything. But I understand that this is more like a place where actually people come and go rather than a closed community.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They come
Okay.
go, leave that kind of cultural resemblance behind, and continue their, you could say, path forward.
Okay. All right. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, Jerry, we have one more presentation today. that's why I re-asked. I wanted to make the diagram, and I was like, I couldn't believe the answer. Well, I think they. This one, yeah, all of you, get your opinion on this. Сега пък ще Phil speaking for me. So first, to give us full screen, the Spedia is Lava Husse. Yeah, welcome.
Yeah.
Is allemaal korte guide. You okay? Yeah. Okay.
Is Riga shrinking, is it?
Yeah. For 20 years.
So, please, Thesis, start.
Hello. I guess only.
1 second.
Yes, thank you. I'm guessing I'm also the person that needs to thank you to jury for being here for all these 3 days. I guess it's quite exhausting. So my name is Thesis, and today I'm going to speak about actually a problem that we all are into, and the problem is related with urban branding, and that's actually a theme that that is quite new in architectural discourse. But let's see. I hope at the end of the presentation also the general knowledge will be increased. So shortly, what is actually the problem? And the problem is that Riga drops greatly behind in terms of real estate development if we compare ourselves with the Baltic neighbors, Vilnius and Tallinn. If we look on the actually statistical data about the last 10 years, then it's not like 5 or 10% that Riga is behind, but it's actually more than 300% if we look on the built square meters of office, residential, and industrial areas. So there is some kind of an issue why it is happening so. And within my part A, I did quite an extensive research on searching what are the reasons. And kind of the leading agencies and leading professionals who are contributing in this team are telling that it's actually cities' inability to communicate. It's cities' inability to define goals, to set strategic aims, and further to actually negotiate these aims with strategic investors. Next is that Riga actually does not have a clear branding strategy. Riga does not have a direct aim where it wants to go, and for that reason, Riga society actually loses a sense of belonging. The society is actually losing a sense of belonging when they are actually belonging to Riga. Furthermore, Riga city itself in 2015, with an approval of Riga Sustainable Development Strategy, even admitted that its planning documentation is too vague and too liberal, and even contributes to urban fragmentation of Riga. And if someone could say that since 2015 something has changed, then actually no. In 2021, State Control Office concluded that Riga City real estate management policy is without any strategic management, and as follows also results. So that raises actually a very simple question. How can one go somewhere if the direction is unknown? Further, on top of that, Riga, among 10 other countries, is actually among top 3 fastest shrinking countries worldwide. All 10 countries which are fastest shrinking around the globe are actually located in Europe, and all of them are post-socialist countries. And Latvia, well, it differs in different statistics, but it's always among top 3. And second interesting aspect is that if we again compare 3 Baltic states, then very recently, again, also in the last decade, but also very recently, the population in Tallinn and Vilnius has started to increase, while in Latvia is still decreasing, and it is expected in upcoming 30 years, Riga will lose more than 20% of its inhabitants. So basically, the kind of line of thought is that if not managed properly, then shrinking cities are on a very dangerous vector, and even more, Shrinking Cities International Research Network, which is a very famous think tank about shrinking cities, when comparing actually shrinkage globally, is telling that shrinkage, if not managed, will jeopardize the entire competitiveness of Europe itself. Then basically the question, how can one go somewhere if the direction is unknown, merged with this notion that actually if not managed, then such uncontrolled development is highly uncompetitive with cities with shrinking populations, and particularly, as in case in Riga, also with limited economical resources. So conclusions from part A is that a continuous prospect of growth as the only way of further development actually needs to be revised. And our planning policy needs to actually acknowledge that we are shrinking, and we need to tackle that idea that all cities are shrinking at the end. Well, it's basically false. We are not shrinking, we are not growing, and it is expected that we will continue to shrink. Comprehension about urban branding is actually very, very limited, particularly locally, and is mostly associated with items of urban marketing, which is nothing of sort. Urban branding and urban marketing are actually totally different things. Comprehension about temporal architecture and its permanent effects towards urbanity is also greatly lacking, and there is no strategic documentation that's actually managing the temporality. And even more, already kind of saying what an urban branding is. Urban branding represents our built environment, the city's environment, its perceptual image, but what is actually very important, that urban branding actually represents not only built environment, but it is also a type of communication, how city communicates with the society. And at the end, we can conclude that urban branding holds immense significance, but particularly for shrinking cities. And therefore, quite provocative thought that actually architecture has placed too much emphasis on purely spatial aspect of architecture at the end of other possible understandings. So what is the solution then? Basically, a system is required to control elaboration of urban brand, to control the system, how city is communicating with the society, and actually how city is emerging and developing. A city that can kind of flexibly react how the city is developing, because we all know that times can change, the city's needs can change, COVID can come, Ukraine's war can come, and in that sense, the plans that were kind of accurate and valid in one part of the time are completely invalid soon after. So basically, how is an urban brand made? Urban brand is made through 2 types of communications, with one being the primary one, and the primary communication is achieved through spatial or non-spatial solutions. By the end, they all have this spatial component. Basically, urban brand is made through whether it's urban design, architecture, smaller city architectural details, temporal programs, temporal architecture, and so on and so on. So basically, those are all spatial solutions that are communicating with the city and thus giving the story, kind of representing to the city inhabitants, but also on wider scale, what is actually Riga about. Yeah, and kind of also, even though there are quite a lot of definitions of what an urban branding is, because it's really, really new kind of theory in urban branding, urban design sphere. But urban branding is basically connecting the physical character of the city with its environmental, social, economical, and cultural aspects of that environment. So we come to part B, spatial mediator as catalyst for urban survival. Basically, for the site selection, I have selected Andrisala, which has been one and only case in Latvia nationwide when targeted urban branding was used as a strategy for revitalization and actually shaping the identity of the space. Even though the strategy wasn't nearly fulfilled, it only started and it didn't fully achieve the goals, but still it showed up that it is possible with temporal solutions and with strategic use of programs actually shape the identity of the space and thus actually open up previously neglected urban scape to the city. For the building itself, I have selected the building that wasn't used for the previously instant city that was located on the Andrisala docks area. In order to control the spaces, I have defined 3 types of spaces: inside, outside, and in between. What is important, in my belief, is that the programs and spaces need to be controlled in urban scale, because we know very often ourselves from the practice that the programs that are sometimes permanent are approved as short-term and so on. So I have developed actually quite extensive algorithms and flowcharts that are controlling both spatial and programmatic emergences in urban scale. Each of the incoming structure needs to kind of go through these spatial algorithms, and only those programs that can clearly define themselves apply or do not apply for the further analysis of the space. Next big structure is the programmatic analysis algorithms, which are made for these 3 types of spaces: outside, inside, in between. And within these algorithms, there is quite an extensive set. And believe me when I say that each line here has been really, really thought out. Basically, when the program is approaching the space, it needs to kind of answer on the questions: what type of space it is aiming for, what kind of typology this program is, what kind of duration this program is aiming for the elaboration of urban brand. The involvement of stakeholders has been named actually as crucial, and that is a point where locally Riga is really lacking: involvement of society in actually building the city. The strategic agreement between the stakeholders, type of the program, whether it is really exceptional, whether it is brand value space, and so on. And only after, when the program has surpassed this algorithm, it either enables or disables for the appearance on the space. For the specific site at Andrisala, I have made kind of my own assumption of 10-year development, which is based on the algorithms I've made. And this 10-year assumption deals with, well, I have currently made 8 stages, but of course it might be a bit more or a bit less. But basically, first 2 stages, knowledge and purge, deals with cleaning up the site and actually establishing the community that believes in a certain space. The 3rd and 4th stage is concerned with actually showing up the first spatial solutions that are built on the basis of the community that was built on certain characteristics. Next stages are the stages when the society, when the community has grown up and reached certain kind of maturity, if one could say. Then actually the programs are emerging more and more. If the space kind of really tests itself and proves it, proves the necessity for the spatial elements to show up there, only then those elements actually emerge there. And this is kind of a 10-year assumption of the site plan. Regarding actually the programs, there are 4 types of programs. I have defined specific programs for my project, but what this thesis is kind of aiming for is to provide a set of tools, set of system that could be used. And 4 types of I'm calling them providers are defined for the floor plans, and that will be a bit easier to understand on the floor plan. This first spatial structure that is emerging on the site is initial provider, which in my case is just a restaurant, but basically it is a temporary function with a temporary character, which grants the possibility for ever-changing users. Basically, the users are ever-changing. It's not fixed program with one type of user all the time. The second program, true provider, also has a temporary character, but it has the ability to adapt to different types of programs. And therefore, if that program is changing, also the user is changing. And that increases the the general scope of the amount of users that are going to the site. In my case, as the development foresees also emergence of permanency, already within the first stages, there is a fixed area reserved for upcoming developments, and irrefutable area reserved for upcoming stages. And here already from stage 5, the permanent provider emerges, which is kind of permanent function with permanent user, which contributes to the space already 24/7. Yes, some schemes just representing that high flexibility is actually very essential for for the first stages when it is really critical to grant permanent change of users. Yeah, and these are the pictures that are, again, I'm really pointing out my assumption of 10-year development when society and this community has reached certain level of maturity and they have all voted for this spatial development. And yeah, I would like to end my presentation with a quote by Keith Christiansen, which I can say it's something to think about, which basically says that city in its physical experience is a result of society's actions. However, what is important to understand that society is also a reflection of city's environment. And that is, I think, really something to think about when we merge the items of urban branding, shrinking, spatiality, sense of belonging to the city, and so on. So thank you.
Thank you, Britis. So your master's thesis theoretical part reviewer is Dina Suhano. So she writes the positive qualities of the thesis. The overall scope and chosen thesis topic proposing urban branding as a strategic planning tool and integrated elements of temporality for adaptive spatial developments in training Riga is quite intriguing and appropriate for the master's thesis. And so the disadvantages and imperfections of the thesis, she writes, the reviewer can only identify minor flaws in the thesis, mainly related to text formatting and punctuation, such as the use of forward slash between similar words and the use of dash instead of hyphen. And the master's thesis practical part, the reviewer is the same, Dina Suhano, and here she writes, so the positive qualities of the thesis. In the theoretical part, the student has carried out in-depth research on the concept of urban branding with elements of temporality for adaptive spatial developments in shrinking Riga, thus laying the foundation for the design project to the point where the theoretical study can be fully fledged integral part of the project. And so the disadvantages and imperfections of the thesis. The reviewer would like to point out only very few and minor disadvantages. Firstly, it would have been relevant and quite interesting to see another central site in Riga chosen as a project location. Andrisal, as a much disputed area, has already been tested by temporary and permanent interventions in the past, and recently quite definite development plans and ongoing design work have been announced. Could you please answer the questions?
Yes.
Wrote?
So I received 3 questions from my reviewer. First question is, who are the key stakeholders you would like to target after you have completed the thesis research? And name the main ones and describe the actions they are likely to take if they consider implementing and working towards urban branding and temporality as synthesized strategy to mitigate the shrinking city effect. So this is maybe, well, this is not an easy question, but because basically, and I'm using this question QA part as, again, kind of giving additional information about my theory. The urban branding actually has various scales, of course, and it is everything starting from nation branding till city branding, region branding, district branding, and so on. There are so really different scales how the branding can occur. I am using Riga as a reference, as a reference for the city branding, but of course the branding of itself goes in both ways, both larger and smaller. And for that reason also the system that I have designed can be used again also on larger scale and on smaller scale. But depending on the scales of urban branding, as follows also the stakeholders that are involved in the system also differ. But from my perspective, I would say it is actually the city authority and planning officials. I have numbered in a list. City authority and planning officials would need to acknowledge the actual status of situation where the city is in regarding the shrinkage and regarding the steps where are we going. Second, of course, is the society and third parties, which can more loudly describe and ask for changes or ask for adaptations in the planning policies. And third, of course, are the developers that are actually shaping the city. The second question was, apart from Andris, which areas or places in Riga need to be accessed and improved and intervened with, and name significant places that could be immediately chosen as strategic playgrounds. Well, here it's again actually quite interesting because in Riga Sustainable Development Strategy 2030, priority development areas were introduced in the planning documentation, but nothing happened. Even though those areas were stated, actually there were no steps defined on how to react on that. As follows, I'm here just stating some quotes from the part A. As follows, there is a considerable gap between the strategies and planning documentation. Contrary to compact city model that Riga is in a way aiming for, the city is actually, the Riga city center is actually becoming more and more empty, and I think we all can see that. And thus I would say actually the strategic temporal use should be focused on densifying the city center. There are quite a lot of empty spots within the urban fabric of Riga. And as Mr. Kronbergs said about the Riga city center expanding across the river, then that could be also a way how to actually improve the connotation of the city center also across the river with introducing different types of temporal uses. And why I'm showing these percentages, that's actually quite interesting comparison as well. That this percentage shows the amount of land that is owned by municipality, and Riga owns only 22% of the entire city land, while Helsinki, city of Finland, owns 70%. And I'm showing this as a reference kind of to strengthen the notion that already now Riga has actually quite the ways how city can impact the way how the city looks like are quite small. So really the steps and strategies need to be really well thought out, and it is up to the city to say where we want to build and actually define the steps that then would need to be taken. And I really like the case from Berlin in Germany, where actually the municipality of Berlin has really understood the power of actually shaping the spaces with temporal use, and they are allowing temporal uses even on private properties, because they know the value of the temporal use, that it increases really the positive connotations of the spaces. If the space is used, it becomes more safer, it becomes more vivid, it becomes used, and it kind of influences the wider radius of that space. And third question is, would you see and how do you see application of the algorithms and developed flowcharts in real planning? And basically the answer is we need to be more bold, because we really need a system. We really need a system and understanding. We really need an aims and steps where we want to go. And in that sense, we really need to be more bold. That I'm aiming, of course, to the city. But urban branding is not like one-size-fits-all solution. It's not that these algorithms can be applied in different scales. They surely need to be adjusted for each specific situation. But yeah, management is really critical for cities with shrinking populations. Thank you.
Thank you, Fritz, for such a good answer.
Yeah, thank you.
So, please, jury, can you follow with the questions?
Well, this was the last presentation today,
Yes.
and the greatest challenge.
Yes.
Talking about that Riga is shrinking, now what you do about it. And you got the answer, urban branding.
Yeah.
Well done.
Yeah.
Now, I just got a few questions. I mean, if you look at planning many years ago, people were talking about monofunctional areas. There were housing areas, there were office areas, there were factories, etc. Now we are talking about multifunctional areas, which means that we're trying to mix a lot of functions in the same place and make it more attractive. I think that's a bit like what you're talking about. And also, I liked one of the last things you mentioned was that you should also welcome temporary uses. You know, I know a lot of examples where they have difficulty letting out properties on the street level, and you open for a so-called pop-up, offerings, and then they will demonstrate that actually they can work, and then somebody will move in more permanently. I think this is just in line with what I'm thinking too. But I just got a few questions. Now, you have as far as if we look at a nice perspective just behind you, there is shows the waterfront,
Yep.
and you show quite a stepped landscape until you hit the buildings. Why did you move the buildings so far away from the waterfront?
That is actually a location of existing building.
Is it? But could you move it further out? Could you move some buildings close to the waterfront to make it more exciting, more active?
Well, let's say so. It needs to belong to the society.
Okay, okay. Yeah, obviously I don't have a sufficient background to understand that. But, you know, my point really is that, and also if you talk about multifunctional areas, then you have, obviously you have to be a bit denser. It's nice to have nice big open spaces. But also if you look, you know, if you look at the section, you seem to have 2 stories of, well, if you like, multifunctional uses, and then there's housing on top. Is that correct? Now, I can think of an area which is very successful in a different city, where you actually created deliberately a new multifunctional area. And they start off at below ground, you hide the cars, and you got some service facilities, and you come on the ground level, and there you have like office, you have restaurants, you got shops, etc. Then you're moving on, you have some offices on top, you have housing. So you have kind of the whole range of it, and that means that this particular area is active 24 hours a day. Mm-hmm. Did you consider that kind of section, or was that?
Yes, that was exactly the idea, that within the first stages we are activating the site with the temporal uses, but surely it's not 24/7.
Yeah.
And as soon as the kind of maturity of the community has reached certain level, and when there is actually a necessity and requirements for building residential units, only then those spaces appear as permanent spaces for 24/7 use.
Yeah, but you wouldn't introduce any offices here, for instance?
Well, it might be, no, oh yeah, no offices, no.
No.
All offices are used from 8 till 5, and then they're empty again.
Oh. No, you give me an honest, proper answer. Thank you very much. And also, but I think it's very commendable, you know, this kind of, to address this kind of challenge. And I hope that Riga will succeed in, with your good ideas, the population will increase. Thank you.
Thank you. I would like also to add, actually, regarding this temporary use, what is also visible in Andris Sala is that in 2008, 2007, 2008, when the instant city was located there, the area was actually very vivid. It was used by many groups of the society. What we see now, actually, there are still temporal structures there, but those are high-class restaurants, which means that actually weaker groups of the society are pushed out from there, and the area is not accessible to them. And that is, I would say, a negative example how temporal architecture is used, and thus actually a negative connotation to the space is created. And therefore also actually the strategic use of temporality is essential.
Well, thank you for presentation. It was pretty clear, this from top to down, but still I got some probably questions about the urban planning. Well, you have used some ideas from the recent Riga Port City plan in your general plan, as I see that.
Yes.
Yes, and the first is why just this place? Why just a small fragment from all the possible development?
Well, at the end, I wanted to reach actual spatial solutions with actual facades. I mean, I could stay at the urban level and shape the buildings and so on. I could also maybe stay at very temporal level with balloons and everything and houses and paper houses, but I really wanted to actually reach architectural volumes with architectural facades and architectural renders, and really to show how the space can develop, and how the spaces with these programs can kind of supplement each other. I used the existing concept of
José Schäfer and Ater.
Sorry?
The authors, the architects.
Yeah.
Well, therefore, my question is, have you studied the previous plans, and why have you chosen only their proposal and implementing only on one side of the port? Yeah, because we do know that there's a crossing bridge and many other things which they proposed. So what are your opinion towards their proposal and how you somehow chose that thing?
Yeah, that is a good question.
Yeah.
Let's say so. The way how Josiah Schaefer's office has designed the master plan is only one of the many options that has been for Andrejsala. We know that there was a huge plan done by the OMA, various options after. Josiah Schaefer's option is currently the kind of the freshest one, but I would say this is just like, I'm not giving like 5% that it will be realized in that way. That is actually the whole idea that I'm saying, that currently the city development is like we're drawing buildings, but we are not like thinking who will live there, when, whether we really need all these new residential buildings if we are really shrinking, and so on. So I'm starting from one corner as an example of temporal kind of step-by-step elaboration of space. If it actually reaches this, then yes, then actually the algorithms can continue, and the spaces further are elaborated on the basis of algorithms, not necessarily like this, of course.
Sure. And then I will extend my question regarding the implementation. What I see here, there are beautiful schemes, how you put the stages, which is really nice example of how to explain the ideas. But then when I look further, I see that the development schemes are only for the building. What I wanted to ask is, at some point, you just stop with waterfront development, and my suggestion would be that probably there's nothing, and then we have a really beautifully built waterfront, and that's it.
Yes.
So, probably a provocative question. Have you thought about some stages, and maybe not explained, how we could develop further the waterfront? And is it one of the options that you just showed? Probably there are more possibilities.
I would say water development in Riga is another matter of great discussions.
In your particular design?
But surely the waterfront development. Well, I haven't represented it in the schemes. Yes, more. But surely the waterfront development is crucial not only for Andrejsala but for Riga in larger scale as well.
So, well, my point was that if you, in the future, in your practice, will develop some project, probably you can also focus on the public space as the possible development, not only the building as a catalyst, because when I see that the building will be built in many stages, I will ask how and why, how you imagine that it will be built while I can imagine freely living in the first tower, and then I have been living in a building where the construction near my house was taking place for 2 years, and it was a hell. So some options.
Yeah.
And also, could you explain why have you chosen the same pattern for the buildings? And that's it.
Yeah. Surely regarding the kind of the construction management for the stages, no doubts about that at all. It's very challenging, if possible at all. But again, kind of maybe all 3 towers would be built in one stage. Let's say it's also possible. And even then, it would be challenging, taking into account that there is a structure underneath already. Surely, that as well. But I'm just really reminding that this is a sample of showcasing different types of programs and programmatic providers that are showcasing the brand elaboration for a certain space. But what was the second question?
Why the same?
Why the same? Yeah, why the same? Let's say so. There was a question also in previous presentations, actually, why the buildings look so clean and why the why the environment actually is so clean, if we know that temporality is often associated with randomness, with pop-up elements and so on. But at the end, I would say we all want to live in a nice and decent environment, and we shouldn't forget also spatial qualities of architecture. It's not that temporality shouldn't always mean that it's a building built from containers, from wooden planks with graffiti and that. At the end, we also need to strive for high quality environment. That is the reason why I selected equal volumes.
Thank you for a really good explanation of a really huge problem for Riga, and not only as we've heard, not only for Riga. Really clear explanation of the problem and also for solutions. So thank you very much. A bit about proposal. I have a question. If you looked at another places also in Riga, because as you are showing, for example, that city center, and we are speaking about city center, and that city center should be revived, somehow revitalized to live, and then maybe something will happen also in outskirts. And the question is, did you thought about some more central places? And because city center is full of places where there are empty existing buildings and also empty plots. So what happens there? Because I guess those would be the priority places to somehow redevelop, redesign, and rebring to the life. And then only Andris Sala, which is like, yes, it is as pop-up, but there are no people living. You are just bringing them there in another territory. What about the center, your opinion and your ideas, or maybe you looked at something particular? Maybe firstly regarding why Andris Sala is one what I showed already in the presentation, because Andris Sala was this first area nationwide where urban kind of branding was actually used for 1.5 years only, but I actually didn't know myself that the first event of White Museum Nights, Baltās Naktis, actually emerged from Andris Sala and emerged from that specific kind of instant city there. That is one thing why I selected Andris Sala, and the second is that I wanted also to include the stages of the community elaboration, that the community also needs to grow up on certain values. As for the city central areas, yes, I briefly looked on two spots. One is the second area where actually currently temporal use is ongoing, is this Sportapils quarter, where also the temporal use is ongoing in a way, and it's already in a way also giving an identity to that space. But what is interesting, and my apologies again for involving theory part, but where developer actually has rejected any involvement in that process that is happening there, even though actually there could be quite a lot of benefits to the developer from the temporal gardening, but he has actually rejected and even denied any involvement from that initiative. And the second that I looked was an area of old central market next to Spīķeri. But yeah, well, there are a lot of, as you said as well, there are a lot of spots in
where I could look. Yeah.
Because following question would be, how do you think, what is an output of your proposed urban branding of this particular place? What would be the output? These 3 houses and some community being there, or some really kind of solvement of the shrinking city, or this will be only this place? How this place will influence that shrinkage of the city?
So this space and this project is about kind of showcasing an example on how to create an urban brand and how to tackle shrinkage. Andrisala, well, we talk about the city center, but Andrisala actually is also very central area, and actually Andrisala is one of the last former industrial waterfronts in Europe that is not developed. So there are actually quite we all know that Andrisala is very, very potential for the development. So in that sense, the kind of the values and the community might be there already, and that's actually also again coming from the theory that the brand of Riga, it never has come from top somewhere. It's not pushed from somebody from the top. It's always coming from the kind of bottom. It's always already written in the footprint of the city. So.
But where does come that community from? From countryside, from other countries, from Riga?
Community comes from well, first community is coming from close surroundings of the specific location.
So they
usually
are emptying existing locations and moving to Andrisala.
If they see if the community and society sees the value, then they move there.
And emptying other places.
Yes.
Thank you.
Fritzi, that was very nice, especially with the theoretical part. That was for me very interesting. It's I also learn a lot. If it will be in Latvian language, it will be better, of course.
Well, I do suggest reading my part A to everybody.
Yes, and that's a very important thing. Probably you somehow needed to organize some discussion about these things with the city authorities. Why not? Because probably they know all these things. But if you know, all the time we know very much things, but we are not forgetting. We are normally forgetting this one in everyday life. Mm. And therefore, speaking about these teams in the city with the people from the city who are making plannings, who are making strategic things, this is very important. And in this respect, this is a very good job. Thank you very much. About this Andrisala, this is a separate topic because, as you said, there is a lot of things behind and in the future and nowadays there is something happened and a bit speculations also. We see how it works and we remember how it was from the very beginning when it was pop-up space with the youngsters, with the artists and all these things. Now as they are moved out from these more or less, yeah. And then this is changing, but the topic is very, very interesting, and it's good to hear from you, and good to talk about these things. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
I have no questions.
Actually, I again want to share something from my theory part. There was a very interesting case also in Berlin after the fall of Berlin Wall. Eastern part of Berlin actually had very similar situation that Riga has now. It also was a post-socialist part of the city. It experienced dramatical shrinkage, and a lot of properties were vacant. A lot of properties were vacant. And what they did, there were two things. Both were very bold. what the first thing, which of course Riga will never do, but actually they introduced demolition. They demolished more than 350,000 flats in order to densify the city center. They understood, well, in Riga we also kind of know that the infrastructure was built for 1 million. We are a bit more than 500,000, something. And they really understood that we need to densify the center of the city. So they really demolished the flats and moved the people closer to the city center to densify it. That was one thing, and the second, they introduced temporary use, because temporary use has a character to kind of test the programs, actually, to test whether the users are actually there. Maybe my development actually would stop at the stage 2. The users are not there, and the development is not happening, actually. It is also possible. And the temporary use has this character of an ability to test both the users, the program, the viability, the necessity, and so on. And thus also provide actually the positive and better connotation of the space.
Okay. Thank you, Fritz. Thank you for the presentation. Thank you for your work, watching you over the several semesters develop these ideas and the preparation of the actual algorithms. I remember the amount of work you've done. I want to say something here about that, is that, and I just wrote like a summary where many times I ask master's students, particularly if they're looking at urban things, you know, are they going to come to an architecture through their work, or are they proposing a scenario or a handbook to come to an architecture? And so what I think you've done here, you have designed the architecture of an algorithm that functions as a tool for the design of temporary and permanent spaces, hosting required or proposed functions. And I think also that was very interesting about your research is that all of the quotes and everything that you stated about the problem, they did not come from you. They were all admitted written statements by Riga or similar municipalities exposing the problem through actual, not through subjective means, but objective data. So it's sort of like a wake-up call that something actually has to be done, because 300% is huge, right? It's not 3%. And so I agree with Andris that this is a document that you should make available to the city, and maybe even present Jonas, please, if I get this wrong, but I do remember you saying in one of the sessions that in your 20 years of urban social, that no one's actually come up with an algorithm to figure out how to address the problem. Is this correct? Yeah. So there's a lot of value here, and I think you should really get an ISBN number for this and publish it. So thank you very much for your work, and for prototyping how you could apply this idea to this specific location. So thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, just one closing.
What?
Oh, yeah. Fritz has said that, okay, he was the last one today. Of course, the jury has not ended its work. We have to begin our work. And so for the next 2 or 3 hours, we have to summarize and complete the bachelor students, and then we also have to summarize the presentations that were done today. So we really thank everybody for the work that we've seen. I'm thanking the bachelor students from yesterday, the day before, and also today, master's students. Thank you for your work. Thank you for the presentations. We really appreciate the efforts, and I really want to really thank the jury, because it is grueling to keep your attention for 3 days and to be able to communicate and to extract within 5 to 10 minutes what your projects are about, to be able to give really bona fide, valid comments. So I really want to thank everybody here, because you weren't just throwing out things to say. You gave out very correct, provocative, critical, good and bad, which is necessary, and that's why we're here. so that the students can understand what their work is about and how to improve it and how the value of those comments can help all of you in the future. So I just want to thank the jury. Can we please thank the jury for this? And now and also thank all of you as well. So, okay, so officially this event has closed and we are going to now, as a jury, go and do our work. So thank you very much. And we will keep you posted. We'll have to communicate sort of unofficially to figure out how we get your grade to each one of you, okay? We will discuss that, but we plan on doing that today. Yeah, thank you.